We may even end a tad early today because the way we're structuring the lessons, this is the end of Zechariah. And I don't want to go into Malachi and other things today. I'd rather keep the recordings more segmented, I guess, or whatever you want to call it, organized anyway. Best I can be organizing anything. So you are going to see something today at most, or learn something, maybe that's a good word for it, that most Sunday school classes probably don't. I doubt that many of them are going to get the insight that we're going to have today. Because we're going to see Jesus on his throne in Jerusalem, in a Jerusalem you can't even imagine, which we'll also talk about. And we're going to actually see how Christ is going to rule his kingdom. And it's eye-opening. At least it was for me anyway. So we're pretty much just going to start with Zechariah chapter 13, verse 1. And we're going to work our way through. They're not long chapters. We're going to work our way through both of those and ask the Lord to open our eyes so that we can see more of what he has planned for his chosen people and us as we await the return of Christ and the establishment of his millennial reign. So Zechariah 13:1, on that day, a fountain will be opened to the house of David and the inhabitants of Jerusalem to cleanse them from sin and impurity. Now, you can read that verse literally, or you can read it theologically. We'll take a look at both for a second. Literally, it means that on that day, a fountain of some kind, you know, the pools of Siloam are supposed to be for healing and so on, a fountain of some kind Christ will create to the house of David, and all of this centers around Jerusalem. You remember the tribe of Judah is around the house of David, the city of David, Jerusalem. The house of David would be David's family descendants and all of that, which would be Judah as well. A fountain will be opened to the house of David and the inhabitants of Jerusalem to cleanse them from sin and impurity. So there's going to be other inhabitants in the city beside the house of David. And what we're about to see, Jerusalem is going to be transformed into the holiest city we've never even experienced. For it to be the holiest city, everybody in there has to be cleansed. And something will occur that will do that, whether it's this fountain physically or Christ is the fountain, you know, the living water, whatever it is, something's going to occur that is going to transform the people of Jerusalem. And then we're going to read something in a few seconds here, minutes, where the city is going to be transformed, the physical city. Cleanse them from sin and impurity. On that day, I will banish the names of the idols from the land, and they will be remembered no more. So Facebook will be out. That'll be it. You know, we read the idols of the land. I know what some of them are because archaeology, you dig up idols all the time, Baal and so on. The idols of the land, by the time Christ returns, who knows? You know, but an idol is something that takes your focus off God and you put all your attention towards that idol, whether it's money, wealth, pride, family, legacy. I mean, everybody's got issues, so to speak. And then there's real idols. I don't know, I don't think I've ever shared this with a class. Idol worship is real today. I mean, real idol worship is real today in this country. This goes back quite a ways now, probably 20 years or so. We had a home in Virginia, and the company I was with transferred us to North Carolina, Research Triangle Park. So I had to sell the home in Virginia. And I don't recall how we found this lady, but we were referred to this Christian woman who a lot of people trusted and had great success with and knew our area real well. Fine, perfect. In comes this Christian woman. Oh yeah, we sign up, all this stuff. The day they come out to put the sign in the yard, she says, come with me, talking to Sherry and I, let's go around the back of the house. I want to show you something. And so around the back of the house we go. And she pulls out of her pocket a little statue about like that of something I didn't even recognize. It was supposed to be some kind of image of some man, woman, I don't know. It had been worn. You could tell it was old, had been used a lot. She said, I bury this in the backyard of every house I list and they sell. So I'm going to put this in the back of this yard. And she digs this little hole and pops that thing down there and boom. And she left. I said to Sherry, so God's got nothing to do with it, even though you're a Christian. She was a Christian, for heaven's sakes. It was just the first time we'd ever come face to face with the real thing. I mean, people do these crazy things. So the idols from the land will be banished and remembered no more, declares the Lord Almighty. And remember, he's setting up a 1,000-year reign. So literally, it wouldn't take long for the memory of this stuff to go. Once you've been in Christ's kingdom for a week, I mean, wow. I will remove both the prophets and the spirit of impurity from the land. And if anyone still prophesies, their father and mother, to whom they were born, will say to them, you must die because you have told lies in the Lord's name. What's the next part of that? Yeah, that's something. The verse continues, then their own parents will stab the one who prophesies. Welcome to the Lion of Judah and how he's going to reign. Oh, absolutely. I was floored the first time I read that. On that day, every prophet will be ashamed of their prophetic vision. They will not put on a prophet's garment of hair in order to deceive. Each will say, I am not a prophet, I am a farmer. The land has been my livelihood since my youth. Oh, no, deny, I'm not a prophet, not a prophet. If someone asks, what are these wounds on your body? What are these wounds on your body? They will answer, the wounds I was given at the house of my friends. So in other words, somebody tries that prophecy thing, the friends are going to beat on them. The parents are going to do worse. Verse 7, awake sword against my shepherd, against the man who is close to me, declares the Lord Almighty. Strike the shepherd, and the sheep will be scattered, and I will turn my hand against the little ones. What on earth? Who are the sheep? And thought Jesus was the shepherd. Who are the sheep, and why are they scattering? This is a reference to, in those days, many of Jesus' followers will fall away. You'll find out who the real believers are, I guess is a better way to put it. And the phony ones are out of there. And I will turn my hand against the little ones. Now, the next thing we have coming, in the whole land, declares the Lord, 2/3 will be struck down and perish, yet 1/3 will be left in it. This third I will put into the fire. I will refine them like silver and test them like gold. They will call on my name, and I will answer them. I will say, these are my people, and they will say, the Lord is our God. And what's happening in this section from 7 down is a judgment on the people of Judah, the tribe of Judah. And this is how he's purifying not just the city of Jerusalem, but all of the land around it, because that's going to be Judah. Because you're not going to, if you go to the holy city is the right word, you go see the Pope, you might think the Vatican's holy or something. The more you get in there, the more robes and, special prayers and all this stuff. Imagine going to a city where the entire country around it is holy. We don't have anything like that today. That's what it's going to be like then. And in order for that to happen, right through from verse 1 right on down, I think that's the last verse in that section. Yeah, right on down to the end of 13, he's going to cleanse the land and the people. in the area surrounding Jerusalem as well as the city itself in a mighty, mighty way. And genuine, authentic, messianic Jews, if you want to call them that, are the only thing that will be in residence in Judah and in the city of Jerusalem itself. So that's 13. That's our first look at the Lord as King. Wow, what else is coming? So now we come over to Zechariah 14. Oh yeah, I got to draw. Oh boy, you're going to love this. So 14:1, it says, "The day of the Lord is coming, Jerusalem, when your possessions will be plundered and divided up within your walls." Okay, so Jerusalem, your possessions will be plundered and divided up. Verse 2, "I will gather all the nations to Jerusalem to fight against it." Now, we talked about this in Zechariah 12. What nations? All the nations. "I will gather all the nations to Jerusalem to fight against it." Who brings those nations into Jerusalem to fight against them? I. So here, of course, they're all, we talked about this before too. Here's all these armies coming in, surrounding Jerusalem, thinking how great and strange, oh man, we're strong and powerful and we're going to just take that city and all of this. Not realizing that the only reason they're there is because God's bringing them there. It's just incredible. So he's going to gather these nations around Jerusalem to fight against it. The city will be captured, the houses ransacked, and the women raped. Half of the city will go into exile, but the rest of the people will not be taken from the city. Then the Lord will go out and fight against those nations as he fights on a day of battle. And we looked at several good examples of how the Lord fights for his people. So this is the early days of the Battle of Armageddon. They have surrounded the city. They've actually sort of penetrated into it. They haven't fully captured it. Now, and we read in chapter 12, they have no hope. The residents, the Jews inside the city in particular, there's no one they can depend on. No allies are going to come and help them out. Nothing, just them. And when they finally get to realize that they have no other source of help but God, verse 3 says, "Then the Lord will go out and fight against those nations as he fights on a day of battle. And on that day, his feet will stand on the Mount of Olives east of Jerusalem." So this is described in other places as well, but this is the day of the Lord, the day the Lord returns. And Wes is just going to do horrible things to this whiteboard. I know that doesn't look like a Wailing Wall and the Dome of the Rock, but that's what that is. Then we have a valley here. And then we have this mountainous area up here. And as you go up the top, this is Mount of Olives. Along the way up your climb, if I can spell it right, is Gethsemane. And I'm probably not going to spell it right. And I mentioned it once before. Here's bonus points for the class. What does Gethsemane mean? What's the name of the mountain up there? I just wrote it on the board.
Olives. Something to do with olives. I just don't remember exactly what it was.
Olive groves. And the Garden of Gethsemane is where Christ camped. It's a small tourist attraction now, unfortunately, but this whole thing was huge olive groves. And they had olive presses. Gethsemane olive press, I believe. So, Mount of Olives, big valley, and again, unless you're there, it's hard. No way I can put that on the board. But you're standing on Mount of Olives. You're looking straight across the temple. And as they're coming in to Jerusalem from the east, you crest that hill. It just takes your breath away. Right now, what you see, of course, is the Dome of the Rock, but you can also clearly see the temple walls as well. Anyway, Mount of Olives. Christ is going to come down and stand on the Mount of Olives. And let's see, just to orient ourselves a little further, I probably have this done wrong. This is south. No, this should be all right. This is south. That would make this west. This is north. And therefore, this is east. Okay, see if that works. So it says, on that day, then the Lord will, there's the day of battle. On that day, his feet will stand on the Mount of Olives, east of Jerusalem. My E in the right place? Oh, I'm so good. Listen, one other thing. We're going to come over here for a second. I know the Dome of the Rock's on the other side, but that's all right. You guys get the idea. This is built on top of a mountain. Do you remember what the name of the mountain is? Where the temple is built, or why it was built there? Why didn't they just find a nice flat piece of ground and build a temple? Why on a mountain peak, mountain top, if you will? No? I'm sure we talked about this before. This is going to go in everybody's record, I'm telling you. No.
Now you can see everybody?
This is Mount Moriah. What's Mount Moriah?
Where you got the Ten Commandments?
Other than the wind is called Moriah, Oklahoma? No, never mind. Where you got the, no, that's, you're talking about Mount Zion, Mount Sinai. No, Mount Moriah is the mountain that God led Abraham up to sacrifice his son. And instead of the son, God provided a lamb and sacrificed on the top of that mountain. So what they've done, they've left that there. That's a holy place. And in fact, the Muslims as well, that's a holy spot right there where the blood of the lamb was shed to redeem God's people. So what they did was they built, like you would do in your backyard. You know, if you had a hill, that is horrible. If you had a hill and you wanted to level it off, you could cut the hill down, but if you're not allowed to, in this case, you put up not foundation wall, but a retaining wall. You put up a retaining wall to the height of where you want it to be, backfill it, and now you got a level, and now you can build. That's what they did. Now their retaining wall is a single stone's bigger than this classroom. I mean, this is a monster retaining wall. But they built a retaining wall all around the mountain, then backfilled it to get it level. And that level part is what you see today. If you see a picture of the temple or the Dome of the Rock, it's sitting on that retaining wall in the level area that they built the temple on. The temple was totally destroyed in 70 AD. But they built that retaining wall there. Well then, yeah, the Romans come along, they knock the temple off, and what's left is just the wall. And Wailing Wall is the western side, west. Wailing Wall is the retaining wall that remains from when the Romans destroyed the city. Now, the reason I point this out, besides my crummy drawing skills, so that's up there. Well, we're going to build a city. And they built the city down the side of the hill. And the small, Salem originally, and then Jerusalem, and became the city of David and so on. This is why David could be on his roof and see her taking a bath. He's the topmost place. The palace would have been the topmost place. And when you're there, you see it. They'll take you down now it's a winding street that goes down. But Jerusalem, the original, what they call the old city, is like this, attached to the side of a mountain. So we need to remember that as well. So it says, on that day, his feet will be the Mount of Olives, east of Jerusalem, and the Mount of Olives will be split into two from east to west, forming a great valley. Well, we already have a valley going that way right now. This one, There's the Mount of Olives. It's going to be split right down, and Jerusalem is here. It's going to be split right down the middle. And this will be the flow of water, east to west. What's west of Jerusalem? Way west. Got a big map right there. What's to the left of the map? Water. What's that water called? Mediterranean. Okay. What's to the east of Jerusalem? The other way.
More water.
Yes. And it's called the Dead Sea.
Dead Sea, that's right.
So it's going to go either to the Med or it's going. Remember we read this prophecy in was it Ezekiel? How the Dead Sea is going to come to life. Sort of living water is going to be sent down there. And then the other thing that happens, I'm getting ahead of the lesson, but what's that ever stop me? So you see here is the Dead Sea. Jerusalem is little tiny letters on here. Well, it's got to be up in here somewhere. Oh, there's a Golan Heights. Yeah, Jerusalem's in this area here. In any case, this river is going to come out, hit the Jordan, and come down to the Dead Sea, if you will. This general area right here, we're going to be talking about in a minute, called the Arabah. But right now, so Christ is going to literally, it says, put his feet on the Mount of Olives, and they're going to separate. In the second, we're going to read the mountains will move north and south. And that's what's going to create this valley, which will become, in effect, a riverbed for something. So we'll read that. Forming a great valley, half the mountain moving north and half moving south. You will flee by my mountain valley. So when they're all thinking, so it's easy to see, if we just call this Jerusalem for a second, the temple, of course, coming in from this way would be the enemy. Remember, they've occupied a part of the city, but they haven't occupied it all. So we can probably speculate that this part of the city will not have been occupied yet. He gives them a way out, just like he did with Yul Brynner, and no, it was Charlton Heston, that's right. Just like he did with the Exodus, where they held the sea back, everybody got hot foot across there, and then in comes the water. He's creating an escape for the citizens of Jerusalem away from this horde that surrounds them, and then he'll deal with the hordes here in a second. So moving north, you will flee by my mountain valley, for it will extend to Azil. You will flee as you fled from the earthquake in the days of Uzziah, king of Judah. Then the Lord my God will come, and all the holy ones with him. Who else is with Christ?
Believers.
Yeah, us. When we come back, we're coming back to, see, if you don't get a Holy Land tour now, you're going to get a great one. Yeah, all the holy ones, all the believers, all the redeemed, all of those whose names are written in the book, Lamb's Book of Life, will come back with him. More will get added to that Lamb's book once we're here again, but that's another story we get to that in Revelation. Yeah, we're going to step foot, so to speak, on the Mount of Olives. We're going to maybe even help, I don't know, but we're going to watch or help get everybody out of Jerusalem so that Christ can deal with the enemy. And I lost track again with, okay, my holy ones with him, verse 6 we're in now. On that day, here you go again. I'm telling you, Sunday school classes don't get this stuff. On that day, there will be neither sunlight nor cold, frosty darkness. It will be a unique day, a day known only to the Lord, with no distinction between day and night. When evening comes, there will be light. We've never had that. This particular day we have never experienced on this earth. The closest you can get to it is to spend a year up in the Arctic Circle. And in that particular one, the winter, there is no daylight, it's all dark. And in the summer, it's all daylight, all day, all night for a couple of months, and then that disappears. And that all day, all day, all day thing, boy, that twists your mind around because we're built to go to bed. And when it's 2 in the morning and you're still sitting out back on the deck watching the Hawks and the Bears and all of that, and suddenly it's 2 in the morning? No. You know. Plus, if there's no night and there's a battle going on, I was going to say it gives Christ plenty of time. He always has time. But you can imagine the disorienting effect, along with everything else Christ is going to do to them. But the disorienting effect, you're an attacking army, and you've planned around the clock, so to speak. Now you don't have a clock. Hey, what happened? Who changed the atmosphere? Something is going to happen that will cause this, and it'll be very disorienting. Plus, it signals the end of our current period of grace if you're a dispensationalist. This will be it. Boom. It's a day like no other. And on that day, sunlight nor cold, frosty darkness. So even the temperature is going to be fine. And yes, it does get cold in Jerusalem. It will be a unique day, a day known only to the Lord, with no distinction between day and night. When evening comes, there will be light. On that day, living water will flow out from Jerusalem, half to the east to the Dead Sea and half to the Mediterranean in summer and winter. And that's this badly drawn river that we're talking about coming. It's going to go right, the Mount of Olives are going to go like that. There's going to be this giant river flowing both behind you and ahead of you as you look at it, out to the Dead Sea and out to the Mediterranean. And it isn't just a 1 or 2 day thing. The Mediterranean Sea in summer and in winter. He's beginning to create his capital city, if you will. First thing he's doing is sort of giving life to the area, particularly around the land of Judah, this river. Living water. So, drink from me. Now you're going to see. This is not just water. This is really something different. This living water will flow out from Jerusalem, half to the east to the Dead Sea, and half to the west to the Mediterranean in summer and in winter. So you've already got this beautiful looking, almost the crystal river of heaven picture across the center of the land right there. The Lord will be king over the whole earth. On that day, there will be one Lord, and his name the only name. The whole land, from Geba to Rimmon, south of Jerusalem, will become like the Arabah, but Jerusalem will be, oh yeah, we'll get to that in a minute. So that's what I was talking about. We'll use this map over here. I know that people won't see it on the camera, but yeah, so Dead Sea, Sodom, so Jerusalem's got to be right up in there. I can't, this is such a tiny, there's the West Bank. Anyway, is that Jerusalem? Oh, that blotch right there. Wow. Okay. So that's true, because when we're at the site of Sodom, you're looking at Jericho, and up on the mountain on a good day, you can see some of the things in the city reflecting sunlight. So from here down, essentially, is going to turn into, there's Gaza right there. Yeah, this whole thing is going to turn into one of the most lush areas you've ever seen in your life. And this living water is going to do it. Israel is, I mentioned this in, I think, Ezekiel. It talks about it. It's going to become the most lush, fertile soil in the world in Israel. He's really going to convert the land. It's incredible. So the whole land will become like the Arabah, but Jerusalem will be raised up high, and then he's got these gates listed in here from the top to the royal wine press. Jerusalem, and will remain in its place. So today, my crude little map doesn't really do us justice. I have a wildflower in my way here. Okay. So Today, as crude as this is Jerusalem. And when you see modern day, I should have brought a couple of them. I just now thought of it. See modern day pictures of Jerusalem, you'll see the Dome of the Rock. And then you'll see, just like you do in other cities, hills and valleys, and they've got homes built, the hills and the valleys. They're just, I mean, it's the city of Jerusalem now is massive, but it's all done in hills. They're basically sitting on the top of a series of hills, mountains, whatever you want to refer to them as. All of a sudden, in this verse, the city, including him, the temple, this whole thing is going to be raised up higher than anything else. And if you see artist rendering of it, it's wonderful. Picture a plain, a lush plain, green, a Garden of Eden kind of thing. And at the other end, this is not sacrilegious, but kind of the Wizard of Oz look. You remember the movie Wizard of Oz as you're coming in and he's in this big castle way up on the top, where you go to Malta, you get to Malta, and way up on a hill, you can see this massive fortress up high above everything else in the city. That's what Jesus is going to do. Jerusalem and the temple are going to be lifted up very high, and then everything else below it is going to be this plain, this very lush plain. So that when you're coming in to the holiest city in the world, it's going to look like it. It's just going to be amazing. It will be inhabited and never again will be destroyed. Jerusalem will be secure. Amen. Then verse 12. This is the plague with which the Lord will strike all the nations that fought against Jerusalem. Now remember we said when we looked at the Lord fighting for us before, he's done all sorts of things. He'll create confusion and they'll turn on themselves, plagues, all kinds of things. Look at this one. Their flesh will rot while they are still standing on their feet. This is right out of they're not Grateful Dead. What is it, Dead? Walking Dead, kind of, their flesh will rot while they're standing on their feet. Their eyes will rot in their sockets, and their tongues will rot in their mouths. On that day, people will be stricken by the Lord with great panic. Can you imagine? Panic? Oh my goodness. They will seize each other by the hand and attack one another. And we read about that in Ezekiel. They're going to turn on themselves. That's how he defeats these massive armies. They will seize each other by the hand and attack one another. Judah too will fight at Jerusalem. The wealth of all the surrounding nations, now the surrounding nations, not all the nations of the earth, the wealth of all the surrounding nations will be collected, great quantities of gold and silver and clothing. So, the map I handed out last week here, if you look at, you're talking about Syria, we got Jordan, we got Syria, we got Iraq, of course, Saudi Arabia, anything that touches Israel, including Egypt, their wealth is going to be brought into Jerusalem. It'll be just totally amazing. Almost done. I was like, oh, cool, we're good. The plague will, yeah, that's right. A similar plague will strike the horses and mules, the camels and donkeys, and all the animals in their camps. Now, I don't want to be Hal Lindsey. Do we really think people will be attacking on camels and stuff in those days? Or today, what would happen? If you were to cause this very thing in a modern army today, how would it manifest itself? What would that look like? You'd mess with the electronics. Just mess with the electronics. They'll either start shooting themselves or their skin will fall off. A lot of warfare now is remote. I mean, look at what's going on between Israel and Iran right now. It's mechanical. But the same thing is true. It says that they'll strike and all basically he'll turn their weapons against their weapons, just like he'll turn their army, their soldiers, against their soldiers. And it is correct. When you get into war, real war, the confusion that can occur in a battle is mind-boggling. And that's how he's going to defeat these armies that have gathered all around Jerusalem. Rot their flesh, have them turn on each other, have their equipment break down, malfunction, however you want to call it. He's just going to cause the entire thing to implode on itself. Then the survivors. There are going to be survivors. Something we forget. We tend to like to think, well, we have a rapture, then we come back with Christ, he reigns for 1,000 years, there's one final battle, and then Satan's thrown into the lake of fire. End of story. Well, no. There are survivors, both believers and unbelievers, the first day that the Lord comes back. And then you have the population for 1,000 years under Christ's reign that have to hear the gospel and accept Christ as their Savior. It's one thing that he's king. It doesn't mean they have to accept him. We see that in politics all the time. Just because you're the mayor or just because you're the whatever. I don't care. I don't respect that. So there's going to be a lot for those of us, quote, holy ones who come back with Christ. There's going to be a lot to do across that 1,000 years. Anyway, it says in verse 16, then the survivors from all the nations that have attacked Jerusalem will go up year after year to worship the King, the Lord Almighty, and to celebrate the Festival of Tabernacles. And the Festival of Tabernacles will be instituted as a national day, or week actually, and everyone will be required to participate. If any of the peoples of the earth do not go up to Jerusalem to worship the King, the Lord Almighty, they will have no rain. And he means rain water. One of the things that's common through what we've read before, he'll turn your land into a desert. Just stop giving you rain. That's it. You'll starve. Your land will turn to nothing. It'll be vacant. Nobody will want it. This is how Jesus rules as king. Thankfully, today is the Lamb for us. They will be there. This will be the punishment of Egypt and the punishment of all the nations that do not go up to celebrate. Now, all these things have happened. We've come down, the valley split, the mountain split, we have a new valley, Jerusalem suddenly goes up and everything else is fine, lush. I mean, in no time at all. He's the obvious king of the world. Egypt doesn't want to go up to the tabernacle. What? I've said this before, I'll say it many times again. We don't understand how lost a lost person really is. Satan knows Jesus personally. Satan knows God personally. Satan's in God's presence pretty regular, actually. Satan knows God's word, literally. So just telling me that I know there's a God, or I know that doesn't mean that you have put your faith and trust in Christ and that you admit you're a sinner and you fall short. Satan's not admitting to any of that. Satan and his followers want to elevate themselves above God. And when you want to do that, nothing, absolutely nothing, is going to change your mind. So witnessing to the lost of the world can be a real challenge because a lot of them I've had bosses where that's enough. I don't want to hear that. That's just foolishness. Go back to work. That sort of thing. Because I can't believe, that's like we said with the Jews. Your back is against the wall. God separates not the Nile, the river. God separates the river. All the Egyptian military march into it. God kills them all off while the Jews are watching on the other side safely. And then the next thing you know, they're making gold calves to other gods and things. And lost people are really, really lost. And to all the stuff will have gone on prior to the first tabernacle event, tabernacle festival, for Egypt to say, you know what, we don't know. He can't blah, blah. Oh, you've had people standing you're talking to and their skin falls off. Boy, I think I'm going to listen to that God. You know, is that the end of it? Yeah. But he says that that'll be the fate of Egypt and the punishment of all nations that do not go up to celebrate the festival of the tabernacles. Then in closing, on that day, holy to the Lord, will be inscribed on the bells of the horses and the cooking pots in the Lord's house. And you know, you can just see that if you picture the British Guard over in front of the palaces, and you know all the things where you see the changing of the guard and all of those things, the ornamental uniforms and how the horses are decorated out and all of that. Christ is going to have the same thing, only more. So on that day to the Lord, on that day, holy to the Lord, will be inscribed on the bells of the horses, and the cooking pots in the Lord's house will be like the sacred bowls in front of the altar. And being an archaeologist, wow, I want to see one of those cooking pots. Plus, they're going to be brand new. They're not going to be digging out of the dirt. Every pot in Jerusalem and Judah, and that's what we have to remember. He wants the whole area around Jerusalem absolutely holy, period. Holy meaning, number one, set apart. That's really what it means. To be wholly dedicated to something, you are set apart to that. And they are set apart to serve the Lord and to honor him. Every pot in Jerusalem and Judah will be holy to the Lord Almighty, and all who come to sacrifice will take some of the pots and cook in them. And on that day, there will no longer be a Canaanite in the house of the Lord Almighty. And what he's talking about there is, so it's time for, you want to go see the Lord, but you have to make a sacrifice. That's the other thing that surprises folks. Sacrificial worship is very much ongoing. Even though he is the Lamb of God, that sacrificial worship is still very much ongoing during the 1,000-year reign. So you have to go up there. Now, we know from other Bible studies and looking at the Bible, Holy Week, you know, it starts with Palm Sunday and Passover. Jerusalem would have 100,000 or more residents in it because people would be coming from all over to celebrate that there. And the one thing they needed when they got there was sacrifice. They had to have a lamb or it was two doves, I think. They had to have a sacrifice that was acceptable to the Lord. Most of them would travel there and buy that in Jerusalem. That's what was going on in the temple. Christ said, "You turn my, into a marketplace," and then faulty, they were doing all kind of bad weights and accepting things that weren't really pure and all kinds of stuff. So here we have a case where you need to cook something as a part of your sacrifice. Every pot in Jerusalem and Judah will be holy to the Lord, and all who come to sacrifice will take some of the pots and cook in them. So they're going to actually have the kitchen pantry, if you will, set up. And if you're going to make a sacrifice to the Lord, it will be done in those pots and not yours. I mean, that's how finite his rules are going to be. And he will expect that to be followed. I would not want to be the person that doesn't. But it gives you an idea. So we're going to end there. We'll start our last Old Testament section next week. But it gives you an idea that Christ is coming back as a real king, and a king who rules with a rod of iron. Wow. Ooh, glad we're on his team. This age of grace that we live in will not exist then. So let's not waste it. Get out there and let folks know who's who and what's what and spread the gospel and so on. It'll very much be a new place. Incredible. So we'll stop there.